Hey guys, what's up? It's Charlie here, and today we're going to be looking at 10 scary urban legends that are actually true. We all think that an urban legend is, as the name suggests, a legend. But sometimes these stories turn out to actually be true. So here are some scary tales you won't believe are real, but they actually are. Before we get into it, why not subscribe and press the notification bell too? Urban legend has it that if you do, you'll have a great day. Coming up first, we have being watched. We've all heard urban legends of people being watched all the time. Whether it's someone with the illness The Truman Factor, which means they always think they're on a TV show, or if it's just someone generally paranoid thinking someone's watching them at all times. I'm sure we've all been at home alone one night and thought someone might be watching us. Well, it turns out that could be true. In 2012, a woman from South Carolina began hearing noises in her house. These would usually take place above her bedroom, and she would even see nails popping out of the ceiling sometimes. She was very concerned, so she sent her two kids to go up the attic and check it out. When they did, they were stunned as a man ran out of the attic and then out of their house. It turned out the man was this woman's ex-boyfriend who'd been living in her attic. But the scariest thing is how long he's been up there. They broke up in 2010, which means he was living up there for 12 years. She said she hadn't needed to go into the attic for 12 years, so she never realized. And the creepy thing is, he was watching her as there's vents in her attic that he could see through. The man had made a makeshift bathroom out of drinks cups. And at night he'd often sneak down and then steal food. Really makes me want to check out my attic to see if anyone's watching me. Next up is POLYBIUS. Ever since the 1980s, this has been a very popular story among gamers. In Portland, Oregon in the early 1980s, there was apparently a coin-operated arcade game. This game was called POLYBIUS, and it was said to have very strange effects on anyone who'd play it. These feelings included things like disorientation, game addiction, amnesia, and even worse things than that. Apparently, men in suits would sometimes visit the arcade and collect information from the machine before leaving. Some said this could be some kind of experiment the government was doing at the time. Well, it sounds crazy, but that's exactly what was happening. POLYBIUS actually turned out to be part of the CIA's MK-Ultra experiments. These were mind control experiments the CIA conducted on citizens in the 1980s. People who remember this game have tried to remake it online. However, no one's got the exact copy, as all copies were apparently destroyed by the CIA. Next up, we have cooked wife. We've all heard stories of restaurants serving up people to their patrons. Of course, this did actually happen hundreds of years ago with cases such as Sweeney Todd. But don't think that's all in the past. You could be tucking into some humans next time you go to a restaurant. A few years back, one man named David Vines proved this. He was a chef and was known for having some of the best meat around. But one night, David and his wife got into an argument. This ended in David duct taping up his wife and pushing her over. But when he woke up the next morning, he realized his wife was no longer alive. He panicked and tried to get rid of the evidence by cooking her up. That's right, he put his whole wife in a massive pot and cooked her for 4 days straight. Now, luckily he didn't serve this to anyone and instead turned himself in. Now the only thing David's going to be cooking is ramen noodles behind bars. Next up is fake cop. If a police officer came up to you and told you to do something, you'd likely do it. You wouldn't question whether they're a real cop or not, as it's not worth the risk of them getting annoyed and arresting you. Well guys, this story proves you never 100% know if you're dealing with a real cop or not. Every year in the USA, around 200 cases of fake cops have been reported. Very recently in Bloomington, Illinois, a man used a flashlight to pull a vehicle over. Then once the vehicle pulled over, he walked over, pulled the driver out of the car and hijacked the vehicle. And in Fayetteville, Georgia, a man pulled over a teenage boy riding a bike. He then told him to empty his pockets and he took all of his money and his cell phone. The cop then sped off and the teenage boy was completely confused. He soon realized it was a fake cop all along and was able to call the real police. But they never tracked down the fake cop, and there's hundreds of fake cops out there to this day. Next up is brain eaters. If your doctor told you there's something in your head eating your brain, you'd probably think it was out of a sci-fi horror movie. But no guys, this actually did happen to a British woman named Rochelle Harris. Rochelle had just got back from a great hiking trip in Peru. However, she had a slight pain in her ear after she returned home to the UK, so she went to the doctor. Initially, the doctors thought it was an ear infection, but they soon realized it was much, much worse. The doctors told her you have maggots inside your ear which are eating your brain. Yeah, just imagine hearing that from your doctor. I would be freaking out. But how did brain-eating maggots get into Rochelle's ear in the first place? Well, it turned out a New World screwworm fly had laid eggs in her ear canal. This caused many maggots to grow inside her brain. But remarkably, doctors were able to remove all the maggots and Rochelle is now totally fine. But if she'd put it off and didn't go to the doctor, then she may have no brain and may not still be with us. So guys, if you ever have a pain, don't hesitate to go to the doctor. Next up is nail breakfast. Have you ever had a really bad breakfast before? Well, that may be the case, but it's nowhere as bad as what one girl had in Texas. A couple years back in Texas, a young girl showed up at the hospital with a pain in her throat. Doctors took her in for an x-ray and they were stunned when they found a piece of metal wire in her throat. But how had this got there? Well, it's actually something that could happen to all of us, as I'm sure we all do this. A few days before this, her father was cleaning down their grill with a metal wire brush. Now, unfortunately, one of the metal wires from this brush went into the grill. Then, the next day when the family cooked breakfast on that grill, the girl ate the piece of metal wire. So guys, always be really careful when cleaning your grill with a metal wire. Maybe switch to a wet cloth or something else. The scary thing about this is it could happen to anyone, and it's super dangerous. Now, luckily this girl was okay, but doctors say it was likely she couldn't have been. Coming up next is Bunny Man. Have you guys ever heard the urban legend of the Bunny Man? Well, if you live in Virginia, I'm sure you've heard of this urban legend. It began in the 1970s and it was about a mental patient who apparently takes people's bunnies. The escaped mental patient will then take the bunnies' lives and then hang them from underneath an underpass. This underpass is known as the Bunny Man Bridge, and Virginian locals are said to never go near it. Some even say the Bunny Man also does this to teenage boys and girls. Now, you may be thinking this sounds like some crazy tale which cannot be serious. But no guys, this really did happen in October of 1970. In 1970, a couple was driving down a woodland road when they saw a man wearing a white bunny suit with bunny ears. He then began yelling at them and then threw a hatchet at their windscreen, smashing it. 2 weeks later, another person saw this same guy wearing the bunny suit holding a hatchet underneath a bridge. Police tried to find this guy, but they never did, and rumor is he's still out there to this day. Next up is CROPSEY. If you've ever been to Staten Island, I'm sure you've heard the urban legend of CROPSEY. CROPSEY is said to be a boogeyman who lives in the woods and takes children at night. This story was shared around a lot, and parents simply said it didn't exist. But the parents were just saying that to make their kids feel better, as it was actually a real case. This is detailed in the documentary CROPSEY. You see, in 1987, a man named Andre Rand actually took many children in Staten Island. He was an escapee from Willowbrook, which is a mental institution. Apparently, he would take many of these children from Staten Island in the woods at night, much like CROPSEY. Next up is Charlie No Face. What would you do if one day you were walking down a dark street when all of a sudden you see a man approaching you? You look over, maybe to say hello, but then you realize he has no face. Well, this is an urban legend which has been going on for years in Pennsylvania. This urban legend goes by two names, Charlie No Face or the Green Man. Well guys, this is no urban legend, it's actually a real man named Ray Robinson. And I'm not talking about Sugar Ray Robinson, this guy was born all the way back in 1910. There's only a couple of pictures of this guy, but as you can see, he is very, very strange looking. He actually had an electrical accident at the age of 8. He touched a few active wires which messed up his face for good. Because his appearance was kind of scary, he would only walk after dark. He would walk along Route 351 in Beaver County, Pennsylvania. Now obviously he wasn't doing anything scary, but people were scared nonetheless. People would tell their friends and neighbors they saw a guy with no face. People wouldn't believe these guys, but Ray Robinson, aka Charlie No Face, was a real life person. That's right guys, it's not me with no face. And finally on the list of scary urban legends which are actually true, we have CANDYMAN. Imagine if you walked into your bathroom one night and then someone burst out of your medicine cabinet and took your life. Well, this is a story which has been going on since 1992. It's known as the CANDYMAN urban legend. But in 1987 in Chicago, this actually happened. One night, a woman named Ruth McCoy made a call to the cops saying someone was in her apartment. When the cops got there, they found Ruth not alive. It turned out the perpetrator had got into her apartment using her medicine cabinet. They were able to break through the connecting wall in next door's apartment. Then they simply climbed through her medicine cabinet and into her apartment. Apartments used to be built like this so that plumbers could easily fix leaks. They would simply remove the cabinets to check any pipes and then fix any leaks. But it also became a very popular mode of entry for burglars and, in Ruth's case, the people who took her life. Check out the poll in the top right corner to vote for the scariest true urban legend. I think it's the Bunny Man, as that is seriously creepy. If you guys want some fun and light-hearted videos, check out my second channel. There'll be a link to that coming up on screen in a second. But as always, thank you guys for watching. Check out some more videos on screen right now. Leave a like if you enjoyed, and if you haven't already, what are you waiting for? Subscribe to Top 10s.